Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you for making it to the end of the day. I hope you've gotten a lot to take away from the sessions. And more than the sessions, I hope that you've benefited by interacting with and engaging with the people that are here. So I go to a lot of these events, and I give the roadmap presentation. And the first roadmap presentation I did about a month ago on October 21st for our Madrid Symposium. And October 21st was a special date for another reason. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this interface, but it's from the time-traveling car from Back to the Future. So I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you have actually seen the movie Back to the Future? All right, great. A fair number of you have. It's great. For those of you who haven't seen Back to the Future, it's a movie about this guy. And what happens in the second movie of the trilogy is he travels to the future from 1985 to October 21st, 2015. And he goes there in order to save his children. And what was really funny about the movie is it made a lot of predictions about what the future would be like now in 2015. And to start off, since we're talking about the roadmap, we're talking about predicting the future, I thought it would be fun to look at a few of those predictions and see where we are today. Okay, so let's start with this first picture. This is one of the characters. His name is Biff. And what he's doing is he just completed his ride in his taxi. And I can tell you I took the taxi from the hotel from the airport to my hotel. The prices aren't quite as high as 174 euros or dollars, but what he's doing there is really unique. He's using his fingerprint to be able to make a payment. It's biometric identification, and that's one of the things that they predicted from Back to the Future that you would be able to do. Now, where are we with this technology in 2015? And it's really clear that with Apple Pay, with other ways, that this is definitely a part of what's happening now in 2015. So for the most part, they got this one right, exactly right. The slight difference is that with Apple Pay, you're scanning into your own device, but that's a minor detail. Okay, so the next one, let's see. I apologize for the picture that's really grainy, but it's the best one I could find. But this is a picture of a dog, and it's being walked. And if you can't really tell, it's being walked by a drone. Okay? And, where are we with drone technology today in 2015? And I think you all know that drone technology is pretty ubiquitous. And it was ubiquitous in Back to the Future, and it's ubiquitous today. I think Brian shared some examples of how drone technology is being used. And here's another example with Amazon Prime Air. And what was interesting to me is how the technology is going ahead of things that we're even prepared for. So in the US, there were 13 wildfires, and in which in 2015 they suspected that because people were flying drones to take pictures of these wildfires, it actually interfered with firefighting aircraft. That is a problem, and that wouldn't have been a problem a while ago, but it is now, and it's something we have to deal with. But one thing I'd like to point out with the whole drone technology is, with Back to the Future, I mean, if you really think about this, this is a pretty, would you actually use a drone to walk a dog? And of course, in 2015, we're not doing that. And it's a very simple and naive way of looking how technology could be used. And so even though they got right the technology, the way it's being used is I think here, quite simple. Okay, next one. Okay, what's going on here? And what's going on here is this is a flying car, and it's being fueled by garbage. And we actually, in fact, in 2015, have flying cars. They're not quite as ubiquitous as any of us would probably like, but I don't really want to focus on that aspect. What I want to look at is, what about the concept of garbage being used for energy. Is that happening in 2015? And yes, it very much is happening. In Washington, D.C., in the national capital of the U.S., they have a water purification plant that is actually powered by poop. And so we have not only garbage, but actually human excrement poop that is being used as energy to make clean water. Now, I think for me, this is an example of how we end up using technology in a way we couldn't have even fathomed. Like garbage to power a car, yeah, I can kind of see that, but poop, human excrement, being used to make clean water, that kind of blows my mind. So as we start talking today about the roadmap for Liferay, I would like to focus not on the technology, not on the features that we're focusing on, but on the problems and the challenges that we're trying to solve in this area of digital business and digital transformation. Because I think how they get solved may change over time, but the problems themselves don't change so much. So I'm not sure if you've seen this slide before, but it's a slide that I've used in the past to describe how Liferay all fits together to produce a certain solution. And if we want to summarize it, we can think of it in 3 parts. And the first part is reaching an audience. And an audience could be for you, your customers, your employees, your government constituents. And we want to reach them across many different channels. And in the past, we've talked mostly about web and mobile apps, but now we're starting to think about things like connected devices. And throughout the life cycle, and what we mean by that is, I think there are a lot of products that you look out there, and they're really focused on acquiring customers. And with Liferay and portals in general, we not only care about acquiring those customers, but really taking care of them and servicing them after the fact. And you've seen this as one of the traditional things portals do in terms of customer or self-service portals. And so we want to help you think about what your customers are doing in every stage of the relationship with your company. Now, this is, of course, an extension of what Brian talked about earlier this morning, but I wanted to briefly recap some of the concepts he went over. So if we take a high-level view of Liferay as a digital platform, let's think about why people are using it today. And that is because of the value it provides. So a lot of companies choose Liferay because we provide a lot of the tools for creating websites. And of course, within the last 2 years, mobile apps, whether native, hybrid, or mobile. And they cover a wide range of different of use cases, whether it's websites, intranets, partner portals. And part of the reason why this was really easy and why people chose Liferay was we provided a lot of cool functionality out of the box. Content collaboration, social, workflow, many things like that. And unlike infrastructure portals of the past, we had functionality that you could use right away that was customizable. And we also made it easy to integrate with back-end systems through APIs and web services and expose all that information up into the UI layer. So this is a snapshot of where we are today with Liferay. So where do we evolve from here to provide you more value for the platform? Now, it would be great if all our customers and the entire world built all their websites and mobile apps using Liferay. But a lot of them, of course, aren't going to just use Liferay. They're going to build other websites, other mobile apps using other technologies and platforms. And that's perfectly fine. What we want to provide as a benefit for using Liferay is an easier way to surface that content and data and applications from Liferay to non-Liferay third-party websites. And you've been able to do that for many years through our web services. But we want to see if we can provide you more tools and improvements to our APIs and services so you can, it can be much easier to be able to accomplish that. We're also thinking about how all this will work with connected devices. To be honest, there's not much we can say about this at this point, but it is part of the vision and part of what we'll focus on after 7.0. So once you have all these different points of interaction, whether they're based on Liferay or not, one big problem you have to solve is how do you bring them all together to provide a seamless experience for your users? And because if you're engaging with a company in any type of business process and you leave off from one channel and you start off in another, how can Liferay help you provide that continuity? And as we get users interacting across all these different touch points, how do we bring all that information back into the portal? So we're looking at how to get analytics and activity tracking working so that all that information comes back to the portal and we can better serve users by really, truly understanding their needs. So that's a high-level vision of where we want to take Liferay. I want to drill down into some of the details of some of the challenges that we're looking to address after 7.0. Okay. So one area we want to focus on is how to modernize the experience of building websites. When we first built Liferay, the content management system, this was back in the mid-2000s. And if you think about how websites were back then, I think Brian showed a picture of Yahoo. It was very different. And I think it was used as a publishing channel to take existing content that you had, whether it was some type of brochure, and putting it online. In 2015, websites are now the primary way in which we consume and interact with information. And when you look at sites like The Verge, I think sites like this represent to us modern websites. And if you go to this site or any site like this, what you'll see is that there's a list of dynamic content. It's changing over time. They're able to update the site with the latest articles, but also personalize the content based upon your interest and your viewing history. And if you ever land in one of these pages, there's a good chance that you didn't go to the home page, but you actually navigated through searching for some content and ended up with on an article page. And that page most likely was a long scrolling page, and so when you finished reading that article, the site automatically suggested additional content, additional apps, things that you might be interested in, so that you could be immersed and engaged in that experience without seemingly having to navigate away from that page. So we want to make it easier to be able to use Liferay to build these kinds of sites like The Verge. And so one challenge we're looking to address is how to map sets of content that is published on the website. So in this example, we have a document library folder, and we have a few different PDFs in there, and maybe perhaps they're white papers about your latest product offering. And we want to be able to create a landing page in which people can be able to easily browse and find the information and then download it. So being able to easily map content, whether it's a set of PDFs or a set of web content articles, blogs, videos, or something else to a landing page, is one of the challenges we're looking to help you solve. And of course, another feature of modern web is that a lot of sites now are if you go and look at them, look more like a landing page. And it's a mixture of both design and content. And I think if you look at Liferay CMS and a lot of CMSs that were built back in the mid-2000s, what they did was they had a complete separation between the content and the actual design. And the reason they did that was because for branding purposes, you didn't want your end users to have to worry about what fonts to choose, whether or not they're going to mess up the color scheme. You wanted them to focus on the content. But I think today in 2015, we have more of a marriage between that content and the design. And a lot of authors are actually bringing those two things together. So we need to think through how to better support landing pages like this one for the Nexus 6 that also incorporate marketing concerns like what's the call to action on the page, how's the page performing, and what's the click-through rate. And another area that we're looking to improve is the actual experience of authoring a content page. And this is slideware for now, but it's just here to help you imagine what could be possible. Now imagine you could drag and drop dividers on the page and then be able to configure each of those sections and define what actually goes into any section that you're able to lay out. And one big shift we've had in thinking about how you need to do this is, when we first designed our CMS, was back when, drag and drop was really cool, and it was really user-friendly. But today, in the mobile age, is this the best experience? And I don't think it is anymore. So we're thinking through, if people are going to be using mobile devices, tablets, to author content, it's not going to really work. Drag and drop's not really going to work. So we're thinking through, is there a better UX paradigm for how you can tap again to configure, add things, move things, configure things, so that we're thinking mobile first as we design these pages. So when you're done with that and you take the first concept that we have of being able to define these content sets and take this concept of being able to build out the layout of the page, what you should be able to do then is to be able to preview all the content in a very easy fashion so that you can understand how your users are experiencing your website. Perhaps one of the filters that you can apply here is from audience targeting the different segments and what they'll see and what they'll experience as they browse through your site. And another thing you may want to do is you may want to designate the layout behavior for mobile. So once you've designed the page, you may want to then change the order in which they appear on the mobile device. And you can say that, hey, here's the hamburger menu. Here's some floating panels and the ad that shows up on the desktop on the bottom left. We want to avoid that for the mobile version. Okay, so those are some of the ways that we're looking to enhance the experience of building modern websites. And so the next topic I want to talk about is forms. So I think when most people think about surveys and simple forms, they're thinking about it for a very specific usage. We need to register for an event. We need to download a white paper. We need to fill out some application for a credit card. Now, it's important to be able to support these types of interactions for your users. But I think we often forget that these actions and interactions that people are having with your company shouldn't be siloed and shouldn't just be about that one activity. I think users are letting you know more about them as they fill out any form. And it contributes to a deeper understanding if you can capture information that they're filling out as they're filling out some form. And so as they signal to you the things that they're interested in, who they are, and what they're trying to do by filling out a form, we want to be able to help you associate those with user segments and audience targeting so that as you build your knowledge of these people as they fill out forms, you can understand what their needs are and what their interests are. One of the ideas we had for why forms are so important and can be so beneficial is, you could have a live form, and it can map to an integrated backend service, and that would automatically populate perhaps a drop-down selection field. So in this example, we have maybe you have your products listed in SAP. And you want to make sure that the products you have, as you add new products and remove old products, is actually up to date on your form. And we can do that here within Liferay by integrating into the form field a call to SAP to be able to populate that list. And another example we would have is maybe we can configure a field to go out there and get the exchange rate based on some date so that you'll know what the exchange rate was and for any particular date. I have to, since I come from the U.S. and I'm living in Madrid, I have to deal with exchange rates a lot, and I'm always looking them up. And I got to say that this would be a big problem solver for me if I were doing expenses. And so it's great that we can pull data from systems of records, but what about bidirectional information flow? Is there a way we can actually update other systems of records through forms? And I think that's something that we're thinking about as well. So when you filled out the registration to come to the Liferay Symposium event, and you said that your job title was marketing manager, maybe we can classify you as a business user within audience targeting user segment of Liferay. And if you filled out that your company was Santander, maybe that will integrate and we can update Salesforce to say, here's another contact for this company, whether they're a customer or a prospect. Now, where we're going with the evolution of forms is we think forms can be a powerful thing, not just for registration, not just for surveys, but perhaps for even building your own business applications. If you think about even Liferay blogs, in its truest sense, it's just a very simple form. It's got some fields to fill out. It's got images that you can insert. Now, what if a simple application like blogs was actually built with the form designer? And what that would do is we have a great tool in Liferay now called Application Display Templates. And it allows developers to change the look and feel, to add new fields, and really customize the experience of any applications we have in Liferay. Now, what if we took that capability and put it into the hands of end users? So that if something like the blogs were built off of the form designer, they would be able to add new fields, move around fields, change the look and feel, and really be able to customize it for their business needs. And of course, we're also thinking about making forms mobile-friendly. Mobile-first design has really driven the development and design of the new form designer that we have, and we're very happy with the results. Now, beyond just creating the form and being able to manage that form, what about some analytics around how well your forms are performing and what's going on with your forms? So one thing we're thinking of is how can we incorporate and give you more information? So one idea is, what if we provided some heat map capabilities so that if you had a form, you could see where are users clicking, how far are they going down in the form? And perhaps what that will bring up is the fact that here you have a form. It's for a banking application. And once a user is asked to enter their social security number, I think the Italian equivalent is up there. I don't think I'll butcher your language and try to pronounce it. But what if users got stuck in that area? What we imagine Liferay could provide is then track that back to a change that was made in the form that led to the drop in conversions. So the change was now we're showing the text. We're showing the people actual number. And the change before that, we used to star out their information. And maybe users now have privacy concerns. And so they're not filling out the information because they're concerned that as they're seeing their private social security number on the web form, that they're less likely to fill it out. And we're also thinking about how this might integrate with audience targeting and the user segments. Maybe one thing we'll find is that as we do the analysis and we do the reporting, we find out that younger people, millennials, are more concerned with making sure that the form is correctly filled out. They're not as concerned with privacy. So when they see their number, they're more likely to fill it out because they feel like visually, oh, yes, it's correct. I can click on submit. Whereas maybe, and what we'll find is that older people are more conscious about their privacy, about security, and that they'll want a view of that form with their information starred out. And we're thinking, is there a way that Liferay can be able to not only provide you the analytics, but provide you audience targeting, user segments, so that you can provide the best experience for your users? So that's pretty much it for form. So one other thing I mentioned earlier about all this was we really need to be able to create seamless experiences across all the different channels. And I think continuity is one of those areas where it can cause frustration to your users, whether they're your employees, your customers, your partners. And to be able to really look at that problem and solve it, I think can really push your engagement and the enjoyment that people have interacting with your company to another level. Now, I'm providing here a simple example of someone filling out a form from their mobile device and they lose connection. And then the next time that they're interacting with your company is not through their mobile device, it's through their laptop and through your website. And then it prompts them, hey, we saved your information from when you were filling it out on the mobile device. Would you like to complete that interaction now? And I think this may be a simple example of what continuity could be, but you shouldn't disregard it because it can have a huge impact on how you can either delight or completely frustrate your users. So for me, one of the ways that I've experienced this delight is I live in Madrid. And one of the big challenges is if I don't want to cook dinner or my wife doesn't want to cook dinner, we have to find a restaurant that's open before 8 p.m. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of how Madrid is, but restaurants there typically close between 4 p.m. and probably about 8:30. So finding something open while my children are hungry at around 6 or 7, being able to feed them, put them to bed, and get them up for school is always a challenge. So when I'm in my free time, I can guarantee you, if you're looking over my shoulder, I'm always on Google, and I'm looking for what they call cocina abierta, open kitchen. They're open before 8. And what I really love is that if I can find one, and I'm using Google on my laptop, I know that as soon as I find one, I can say, hey, boys, let's get in the car, we're going to go eat. And as soon as I pull up my mobile device, because I'm signed in to Google on both devices, that latest search and the restaurant I found is right there, and I don't have to go searching for it all over again. And so that Google Maps synchronization between my laptop and phone really delights me because it provides a continuity, experience that's seamless for me that is really valuable when I have hungry kids that are screaming at me. Okay, so once we've got all of these channels and we've got them working together, I think one thing that we really need to do is measure the effectiveness of how things are working to achieve our goals. And I touched upon this earlier, but I think one area that we're looking to improve is on audience targeting and how we create user segments. Now, right now with audience targeting, you're able to target against basic user profile information. Now, how do the user segments that you're able to create in audience targeting really work with user profiles that you have in Liferay? And the old concept of a static user profile just doesn't work anymore. Your users' profiles evolve, they change over time, and we want to be able to really explore that idea, and I'll talk about it a little later. One other area, and one of the challenges that we're looking to solve here is around digital marketing and call to actions. Now, if you've ever had to create a landing page, if you've ever had to create a marketing page in which you wanted to drive certain behaviors, that can be tough. You really have to understand, what are your users interested in and what's the right next step for them. And I think a lot of times, simplified, we see sites where marketers have, just one call to action on the page, and they're trying to drive all the users to actually click on that. But I think a more sophisticated use of a landing page would be a dynamic call to action manager, which would provide you several choices. And maybe those choices could be based upon things that you viewed, what pages you've seen, things that you're interested in. And of course, we're thinking about coupling this with analytics. Which calls to actions work best on this page? How well does the call to action perform overall? And how is this all integrated in with the segments that you've been able to identify? Okay, so another challenge that we need to solve in order to provide a more engaging experience for users is this concept of thinking of your users as people. And if you really think about people, people change over time, and people are multidimensional. So we're thinking, how can we in Liferay help you manage the fact that people evolve as they interact with your company, their interests change, and they're very multidimensional. And the example that I like talking about that is when I graduated from college and I started working full-time. I went to UCLA, and one of the benefits of working full-time at UCLA is if you get accepted into a graduate program, they'll pay 2/3 of your tuition, and they'll let you have 8 hours a week to go to class. I thought that was a deal that I couldn't pass up. So I signed up for graduate school, I got into graduate school, and that's when the complexity started, and the fact that I realized that UCLA was looking at me as a one-dimensional person. Because when I was a full-time employee, I didn't have a problem purchasing things on campus or being able to get benefits. But as soon as I became a full-time employee, a student, and at the same time an instructor because I was being a TA for a class, that's when I realized UCLA has no concept of who I am beyond the one dimension. They can treat me as an employee, but as soon as I try to do something as a student or do something as a teaching assistant, it all sort of fell apart. Like going to the library. Teaching assistants have the ability to loan out books longer. But when they looked at my record, they said, you're a full-time employee. You're not able to do that. And that fact of not being able to understand the multiple dimensions of a person, I think is one of the things that we want to look at. So here's an example of a clothing retailer in the United States that was really enthusiastic about audience targeting and segmenting users and being able to deliver targeted content that maybe took it a little too far. What they ended up doing was they decided, okay, based on your gender, based upon whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, we're only going to show you women's clothing or we're only going to show you men's clothing. And that was a big fail for them. Because what they failed to recognize was there are people like my wife. And if you understand our relationship, I don't do shopping for myself. I don't buy my clothes. My wife actually buys my clothes. And my boys, very young, they don't do shopping. My wife buys all their clothes. So here we have a person, my wife, who's a woman, who goes to a site, and it's great if she wants to buy her own clothes, but as soon as she tries to buy clothes for me or for her children, she can't because the site is just targeting content toward the fact that she's a woman. The fact that she's also a wife and a mother is completely irrelevant. And this is one area where I'm seeing that you have to be really careful with how you implement targeting, because if you don't understand that the people that you're targeting maybe have more dimensions than the one thing that you're targeting, you may fail to really understand them and match the needs they have. And here's another example. Using Netflix for me up to about a year ago was really frustrating because my family shared one Netflix account. So every time I would show my boys a cartoon or something age appropriate, the next time I wanted to see a movie on Netflix, it kept recommending me all these cartoons and things for kids. And it was frustrating. But it's one account, and there are several people using that account. And Netflix understood that after a while. And now the first thing that Netflix asks me when I log in is, who are you? We know that it's one account, but we know that there are multiple people using this account. And once you identify yourself, it tailors all the content. It personalizes content for who you are. And, that just all leads to is there a way that we can provide for you to understand your users better and understand the relationship you've had them with over time? And so we're thinking that there should be some way of being able to gather all the interactions that a user is having with your company, whether it's through a website, through a mobile device, through anything, be able to list them, be able to see what is this person's user profile, how are they multidimensional, what aspects of this user is important, and be able to merge those and be able to understand based upon the action that you're trying to do, based upon our understanding of your profile, is there something unique there that we can identify so that as we interact with you more and more in the future, we realize that, hey, okay, you're shopping and you're shopping for a gift. And your husband's birthday is coming around, and last year you bought something and you got a gift wrap. And we know that you're a woman, but you're buying men's clothing and you had a gift wrap last year. So maybe a year later, or perhaps a month before that year's up, we target content, we target products to you that are for that person you're buying the gift for. And these are the type of things that we want to enable you to be able to recognize and find in Liferay, through Liferay, so that you can be able to, again, engage your users in a very meaningful way. And of course, a lot of this has to do with metrics of being able to gather all this information about what's going on. And one thing that we want to also provide is this concept of engagement metrics. Can people who are creating content in Liferay be able to see what's working, see what's not working, and quickly iterate to make improvements so that they can be able to serve the needs of their users better? So I think Brian mentioned this earlier. I think one problem that we see a lot of times is companies will spend and invest a lot of money in creating a white paper, in creating some marketing content. And then they create that and they publish it on their website, and that's it. And they're hoping that their users will somehow find it, download it, see it. They're hoping that people will be convinced by the messaging, and they're not measuring it, and they're not really investing in curating that content. And I think with Liferay, we're going to a point where we realize if it's worth creating, it's worth measuring, it's worth understanding, it's worth really investing in making sure that you can get the most out of those investments you've made. So we want to help you gain insight on what's the popular content, what are the frequent search terms, are people abandoning this page or this article once they start reading it? And more importantly, we really do want to make it actionable. And what I mean by that is, so the example you're seeing here is maybe this is some metrics on a blog. I've blogged about Liferay 7, and I need to make sure everybody in Liferay has read about when we're going to release Liferay 7, what are the new features, why is it important? Now, one of our frustrations right now is I can write that blog, but I have no idea who within Liferay has actually read it. So maybe based on that, I can see here 32% of the people have viewed it. It's been out for maybe a few days. But more importantly, in the right there, you see who's unread it. And the big red button is send a reminder. Maybe making it actionable, allowing a user to say, hey, this is a really important communication. I need to be able to send this so that people really read it. Those are the things that we're thinking of being able to provide. So that's a lot of stuff that I covered. I know we probably won't be able to get to all of it, but my plea to you is help us prioritize this stuff. Help us make sure that what we're thinking is according to is similar to the problems that you're trying to solve. Because I can tell you, as a product manager, I go to these events and I think I'm like this guy. And if you've seen Back to the Future, what this is this is the flux capacitor. This is the technology that enables time travel. And I come up here and I think, hey, here's a great future. Here's a great roadmap for Liferay. This is what it's all about. Now, we talked earlier about making predictions about future and technology and how hard that is. And I'm sure some of you actually think I look like this and not like that first picture. And that's perfectly fine because we're here to collaborate with you. We're here to really understand what you're trying to solve, the problems you're facing, and being able to partner together to be able to define what that future and what that roadmap of Liferay should be. I know that maybe some of the things that I've talked about seem very simple and seem very naive to you, and perhaps it is. It's just like that, the predictions for Back to the Future. But we're hoping that as we listen to you, as we work together to solve these problems, that we'll be able to really go on this journey together of digital business, of digital transformation. And as we do that, I think the future of Liferay is really, really exciting to us. So please, if you can provide feedback, you can join with our discussion forums. You can contribute your feature ideas, talk to your account managers, talk to our Liferay partners. Please be a part of the discussion and help us really be able to solve this problem together. So don't forget to vote for the last two sessions through your mobile device, and thank you so much for your time today.